Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
CL back with you here in studio live. I've been on the road all of this time, folks. I have been here, but I do want to thank Michelle, and I want to thank all of our sub-guests like Mike Woods and Dr. Dave McMillan for being here in my absence. Of course, I joined you on a few of those occasions, and I certainly am glad that you have hung around there for us. Folks, there are some changes, some big changes that are about to happen here in our show and the things that are going on with us, and I've been telling you about it for, some time now, but I'm not quite ready to make the announcement of what's going on and what's happening as far as that's concerned, because I just don't want to jinx. Well, I mean, I don't believe in jinxes and all that, but then again, sometimes they are, and sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes not. So I'm just going to play it safe as far as that's concerned, play it close to the vest. But I have been telling you that we are making some changes, and some special things are about to happen as far as the show is concerned, and you are going to be coming along with me. Jay Watley, I'm glad to be back here with you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, man. How was the week?
Brother, it has been fast-paced. Fast-paced is all I can tell you. Looks like we got a lot of things done there in D.C. And, folks, I've been in, four different states in one district. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, West Virginia, and then down to the District of Columbia. You know it as Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Matter of fact, I was there on yesterday when, I think that we may be making strides in the right direction. And as all of you know here for the last little bit now, every day, of course, is a great day to be alive in the USA. But not every day is a good day for conservative policy in the United States of America. But yesterday, I believe, may be a step in the right direction. Back in studio here, and of course, the dusty place makes me begin to cough. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm feeling good. My voice is all back, and all of that is happening real good. No problem with the old vocal cords. For a while, I was kind of worried until the doctor told me I had walking pneumonia, and he said, which I'm over, but he also said, hey, CL, got to do something about those sinuses. And so we'll see what happens as far as that is concerned. But it is a great day in the USA, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here on the C.L. Bryant Show. I am C.L. Bryant, and I want to thank our friends in North Carolina, both upper and lower North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham, and in Wilmington. I want to thank our folks in Arkansas, southern Arkansas, and East Texas. And soon, very soon, we're going to be thanking our folks in Denver, Colorado. Looks like Denver is going to be the first to fall in those list of folks that I have been telling you about. And I am very glad to be back home here again. It was a nightmare at American Airlines last evening trying to get home. I was in trying to get the very last flight here, and it almost always happens in Dallas. It's happened to me in Atlanta, trying to get here on that last flight, whether it's American or Delta. If you're trying to get to Shreveport, Louisiana, on the last flight out of an airport, it's gonna be a roll of the dice whether or not it's gonna happen. Yeah, they put me up in a hotel. That's what happened. That's what happened. They put me up in a hotel and made my way here this morning after getting on the plane at 8:20. It was nearly 9, a quarter of 10 before the plane took off. Why? Because there was a plane behind us that couldn't move. And the ground crew, well, I guess, I don't want to disparage them too much. I guess they do the best job that they can. But the ground crew could not get the plane pushed back, could not get it out of our way. And so we couldn't push back. That plane was having troubles moving. And here you are at an airport, and you don't know what's going on. The pilot's telling you what he feels you need to hear to stay calm or whatever. But you got things to do, people influence and all that kind of thing, and there you are. After the plane cancel your plane the night before, now you're on a plane bound for home, and it can't back up because there's a plane behind you that they can't move. It's been one of those last 24 hours, almost 24 hours, that it has been very hectic. But all's well that ends well. God's still good. I got to tell you that much. And so we got Chris Ann Hall coming up here a little bit later on in the show, and she is going to share with us about this contract called the American Constitution and whatever else that I can try to pick out of the mind of this great patriot, this great constitutional attorney. Chris Ann Hall is going to be on here with us a little bit later on after I return. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the bill that has passed. I'm going to talk about illegal immigration. I want to tell you something. I want to share something with you that maybe you haven't thought about. I don't know. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But I want to share something with you that has struck me, and has struck me like a ton of bricks here these last couple of days. I'll be back. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere.
Home, sweet home.
Hey, folks, it is CL back with you on this Friday, the weekend show. So proud to be back here in my hometown, Shreveport and Bossier, the jewel cities of the Arklatex. Back with you live, well, back with you here in studio, and certainly want to share some trinkets with you. Had conversations with mid to high, well, not really high level folks. Didn't get a chance to talk to Steve Bannon or any people like that. So I guess mid-level folks. I got a chance to talk to a lot of them these last 7 days that I've been gone. And, I have come to the conclusion that you will not necessarily get what you deserve, but you do get what you negotiate. I don't know who said that, but I was turning that over. I'm not really sure. It seems as though I've heard that somewhere, not really sure who said it. But I was turning that thought over in my head. And we as, well, people, human beings, Americans, wherever you are, wherever you might be listening to the CL Bryant Show throughout the world on the CL Bryant Show app, just download that on your iPhone or iPad. You don't necessarily get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And actually, I can show you how the negotiations go on in every facet of your life. If you negotiate bad deals in relationships, you get what you negotiated. You really do. And sometimes you don't know, folks, that you are in a negotiation, but coming to the conclusion, and I really hadn't quite been of this mindset as far as the verbiage is concerned, but the fact of the matter is, it's all negotiation. It's all negotiation, folks. And so when we look at what is going on in our nation right now, when we look at the debacle, when we look at the chaos in many cases, as well as the good things that are happening, all of that is negotiated. And I really believe that there is, in fact, strong arm negotiation going on with this new health care bill that we are going to be looking at here, that's going to the Senate in just a short while now. And I think what Trump needs to do, what the president needs to do, is pull Mitch McConnell into his office and just shellac him. I mean, just waylay his behind. Really good. I mean, when he walks through the Oval Office door, just waylay him, and don't give him a chance to breathe. I mean, just nonstop pummel. I'm kidding, but then again, I'm not. But just the same, just pummel him, because he can be he can really mess up some stuff here. We have a chance to actually do something that we have been promising as conservatives for over 6 years now, nearly 7, and that is to repeal Obamacare and do something that is affordable for the American people. Now, finally, after being beaten many times, now the news media is not telling you this, I'm telling you this. After being beaten many times, somehow Paul Ryan found the courage to have courage. Even though, we're the government will, this omnibus bill. Now, I tell you somebody who truly has courage, and that's Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson is a freshman representative on Capitol Hill, and he has already told them which way the wind blows in his world. And he represents us. And we know which way the wind blows in our world. We want it to be a fiscal responsible world. We sent him there to be fiscally responsible. However, when we look at these things the people that he's going to have to play with, he's swimming with sharks. Although Mike's been up there, Mike swam up there before. He just didn't hold office. He was an attorney. But there are people there who did not have courage. I have a feeling if we'd have had a Mike Johnson in office over 6 years ago, you'd be surprised how the influence of one man determined can make a difference. One person determined, one woman determined can make a difference. And surely I believe that they can take the temperature now of the American people. Now, the progressive liberals are having an absolute fit They cannot stay. I tell you, if you want, I've said this before, especially when Trump was running for president, and I said this right after he became president. But if you want to have some fun, tune in CNN, tune in MSNBC. They are hysterical. They are absolutely hysterical. And it's hysterically funny to me how hysterical they are over Trump getting his way. The constant feed on CNN is it's going to be an uphill battle for this health care bill to get through Senate. They are doing everything they can to keep their troops rallied, to keep them buoyed, to give them some hope that they can still play in this game. We'll talk a little bit more about it when I come back, but I do want to say this. I noticed that on the road, and I'll be headed out to California and other places here in the near future. I head up to Denver in the near future, and more liberal places than West Virginia or even Virginia or Philadelphia. Well, Philadelphia can't get much more liberal than Philadelphia, but I'm going to share something with you that I have noticed in the progressive liberals when I return, and then we'll be back with Chris Ann Hall. CL, back with you on this Friday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, my hometown. It is I, your native son, CL, back here in the bosom of the people who, in fact, are the most meaning, have the most meaning to me and for me, and that is the folks from right here in my home of Shreveport and Bossier City. I do want to thank all of you in the Arklatex for tuning in. Have made us a very, very popular show here in the Arklatex area, Southern Arkansas and East Texas, too. Want to thank you for coming along with us. And, hey, I'm saying this to you folks in Raleigh, Durham, and in Wilmington, North Carolina. And soon, I know that I have many of you folks listening on the app there in Denver, Colorado. Want to thank you, too, for being there for us. And soon we will be expanding into your area. Now, this is what I want to share with you. I have noticed that you have these folks who are just raising Cain about what if the laborers, the undocumented laborers, were to be sent back to Mexico, who would pick the crops and all of that type thing, and you know, yada yada. You would have crops rotting in the fields, and you know, they're just going on. I mean, they are just having they're crazy about it. They're just nuts right now about that. And it struck me the other day. In fact, right before I was about to give a presentation, a speech in I think I was in Toledo, Ohio. I was about to give a speech there, and it struck me, and I said this in this speech. It's mighty strange to me, and you think about this. Think about this. It's mighty strange to me that these progressive liberals are whining and crying over the undocumented lettuce pickers or aliens who are picking lettuce, what have you, in California being sent back to California. And they're crying about how little money they make and no American's going to work for that kind of money. And they're wanting to just march in the street and burn stuff down because of those folks not making enough money and they need to keep their jobs and yada, 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 so that they can at least make that little bit of money. But they're the same people who are saying Americans won't work for that type of wage or do that type of work. But these are the same people who want to pay a McDonald's worker $15 an hour. Now, maybe I'm missing something in this. I don't know as far as that's concerned, but it seems that you really will. You're okay paying that worker maybe below minimum wage for picking the crops. But you want them to be able to stay here in this country while they make that wage picking the crops. But you want someone flipping a hamburger to make $15 an hour. Now, I don't know about you, but I see some type of hypocrisy in this. Yeah, it's hypocritical. The people who claim to care about, the birthers and not the birthers, but the dreamers, they care about the birthers too. The dreamers and all of that don't care if the dreamers' parents or uncles and aunts, cousins are making minimum wage and below, just as long as they stay here and pick crops. But at the same time, you want these people flipping hamburgers in McDonald's, and McDonald's, you really do need to pull your act together. I actually met some people at a McDonald's up there just so we could talk. And I mean, hey, am I supposed to have the privilege of coming in McDonald's to spend? Is that a privilege for me to come into McDonald's and spend my money to be treated like I don't know. And folks, you know how I am about stuff like that. Americans, not only you stand up to the people you put in office, you stand up to the people you spend your money with. I don't care where it is. I guess you can tell I was a little bit miffed about this. And I try not to be. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But do you think that I am going to buy an $8 Big Mac and well, I'm not going to buy an $8 Big Mac. I don't care what happens. Jane and I make much better hamburgers anyway. But the fact of the matter is this: I'm not going to be pay $8 or $5 or whatever for the Big Mac and then be treated like it's my privilege for you to wait on me and spend my money with you. And I'm talking about wherever you spend your money. Folks, this time not only do we take back our nation, but we take back the people. We take back the places where we spend money. We'll continue that another time. But back to this thing at hand. They're wanting us to spend money, $15 an hour, to pay the guys to flip the hamburgers. But the hypocrisy is They don't care if the undocumented aliens stay here undocumented and make minimum wage or below, picking the fruit and picking the vegetables. The same people that want those poor, undocumented, illegal aliens to stay here, they don't care if they work for less than minimum wage. And at the same time, they want you to pay $15 an hour, which makes, by necessity, a Big Mac go up to $6 or $7 a pop. God only knows how much fries will cost. Yeah. That is the world, that is the America that we are in. And I am not going to say get used to it, because Hillary's joining the resistance, she says. Hillary's joining the resistance. Guess what, Hillary and you progressive liberals? We have a resistance of our own formulating right now. And it's going to be my duty to enlist as many folks into that resistance against the new socialist communist movement that is trying to invade, has put foot on our shores here in America. I'll be back with Chris Ann Hall, constitutional attorney and teacher, when I return. It is time now to break on through to the other side so that we can combat the socialist, communist, progressive movement that is trying to invade our once and still great republic. And it will be the work of people like our next guest, constitutional educator, American, former prosecutor, and certainly a child of God, a friend of mine, Chris Ann Hall. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. Thank you so much for being there.
Oh, CL, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You know, Chris Ann, when I first tell everybody how they get a hold of your thoughts, how do they get in touch with you to bring you to an area near them?
Okay, well, I have a radio show, and I have articles, and I've written 6 books. And if you want to schedule me to come and teach in your area, you just find all of those things on my website, chrisannhall.com, KRISANNEHALL.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well.
chrisannhall.com. And folks, I'm telling you, you do want her to come and speak to you and your group whoever you are, wherever they are, it could be school, it could be a police department, it may be your municipality, wherever you are. She's great, I'm telling you. Now, Chris Ann, one of the things that I really want to get into with you today, you spoke something on the show the last time you were on. You mentioned the Constitution being somewhat of a contract, and you also said that multiculturalism had nothing to do with race. I want to spend some time with you talking about those two things. First, the Constitution as sort of a contract between states. Explain that to us and what the violation of that contract means to us as Americans from your perspective.
Well, legally speaking, the Constitution is a compact, which is a contract between sovereign governments. And simply by knowing the nature of the Constitution being a compact, it tells us exactly who are the parties to the compact, and those are the states. The states being the only sovereign governments that existed prior to the creation of our Constitution and our central government are the parties to that compact. Now, when the states came together and created the Constitution, they created a limited and defined central government. And so that's the second point we really need to understand. Not only is the Constitution a compact, which is a contract between sovereign governments, but it is the Constitution that created the federal government. Therefore, the federal government is a creation of the states. The states are not a product of the federal government. It's the other way around.
Absolutely.
And when the states created the federal government, they delegated a small portion of their power to the federal government.
Stop right there. Stop right there for just a second. It was, folks, the states, and this is very important for us going forward to understand, especially in light of the fact that you have socialist and anti-administration factions that are brewing now that would firmly give more power to the Fed. But it was the states, as Chris Ann Hall has said plainly, that created the Feds. We lend them, the Fed, that we created our power. Go ahead, Chris Ann.
Well, that's not even a matter of my opinion, though, CL. That's not an interpretation. That's the text of the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people respectively. And by understanding that it's the states that delegated power to the federal government, and then understanding the definition of the word delegate, we begin to really know what is the ultimate check and balance on the federal government and who holds the greater power. Because the definition of delegate is a temporary transfer of responsibility or authority from a higher power to a lower power. An employee cannot delegate authority to an employer.
Right.
It has to come the other way around.
Right.
And since we know that the states delegated a small portion of their power to the federal government, we know by the very definition of the word delegate that the states are the higher power and the federal government is the lower power.
What should
temporary transfer.
What should we expect from the Fed as far as the limited power that we give them? What are we delegating then? What authority are we giving them? Or what was the intent, I guess I should say, of the authority that we were delegating as states to that Fed that we were creating?
You know, James Madison, history has deemed James Madison as the father of the Constitution. And James Madison explains that separation of power between the states and the federal government in a document that we call Federalist 45. And he says the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those that remain in the states are numerous and indefinite. He said the powers delegated to the federal government will be exercised principally on external objects, and then he names them: war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. He says every other power, all other powers, to include the lives, the liberties, the properties of the people, the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state are reserved to the state.
Wow.
So what we need to remember, CL, is that from the design of our Constitution and the federal government. The only reason we created the federal government was to be an ambassador on behalf of the states in foreign affairs.
Wow.
So if it's a matter of foreign affairs, that's the purpose of the federal government. But if it's a matter of state affairs, it is an affair that is and a power that is reserved to the states. The federal government has no authority to dictate the internal operations of the state.
So we did not, by forming the Fed, give them the power over our local schools or our medicine or those types of things. How did that power get grappled away from the states and the people, Chris Ann?
Well, it always comes by encroachment. The legislators of the state of Virginia in 1799 were very concerned about encroachment, and there's an assembly address that the legislators of Virginia 1799 gave, and they said that the greatest threat to the sovereignty of the states was federal encroachment, and the greatest challenge to federal encroachments was to convince the people that they didn't need them. Because the federal government, they said, is very good at making people think that they are necessary. They said they will clothe them in the argument of necessity, because you must have federal health care, because if you don't have federal health care, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
CL, I actually had somebody tell me on Facebook, angry at me because I was opposed to federal health care, and he said, when the federal health care bill fails, Chris Ann, I hope that you're happy when the bodies are laying in the street.
Wow. Wow. Now that was strong, Chris Ann. That was really strong. And of course, you are definitely the target in these days. There's no question about it. I'm going to return with Chris Ann Hall. And folks, stay tuned. She has just begun to blaze those guns. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere. Back with constitutional teacher Chris Ann Hall when I return. CL Friday, the weekend show. And don't forget this show will replay tomorrow on our friend station, The Promise, both tomorrow and then on Monday. I want to thank you folks in Raleigh-Durham, Wilmington, New Mexico, Wilmington, North Carolina, and also coming soon, you folks in Denver will be able to hear us. All of you throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. Just download that free CL Bryant Show app, and hey, you can listen to us anywhere we go. Now, Chris Ann Hall, constitutional teacher, author, radio host in her own right, is on with me. That's chrisannhall.com, KRISSANNE. Is that an E? It's not an E on you. Yeah, is it an E on the end of your name, Chris Ann?
Yes, it's an E on the end, but one S in the middle. KRISANNEHALL.com.
.com. Go there and get her information. Find out how to get her to a place near you. Now, when we left, there is something very provocative that you said that our people certainly need to pay close attention to, because this is where it's going if we don't check it. And their clothing, big government want to clothe the people in the idea that they are necessary. And the only way to combat big government is to make them know that we can survive by ourselves. So there's a sick codependency, sort of, that they're trying to create in the minds of American people at this time. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that'd be accurate, CL. But the interesting point is that is who they've always been, because in 1799 the legislators of Virginia were warning their people against that very same threat. They said they will clothe their arguments for federal funding in the cloth of necessity and expediency. So the idea that you must pass the bill so you can read the bill is not even a new government tactic. They were doing that our federal government was doing that already in 1799, trying to steal the power of the state.
Wow. Nancy Pelosi's been around that long. That's amazing.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi's been around that long.
And you use the word encroachment. The federal government does encroach. And is it obviously they actually see weaknesses in the American society where and when I'm talking about we're actually talking about people who we place in office. Those are the people that's encroaching.
Well, not only that, it's an encroachment upon our liberties, because every power we allow the federal government to exercise that has not been specifically delegated to the federal government, but had been reserved to the states. Every power we allow them to exercise that has not been delegated is an encroachment upon the liberty of the people, because the separation of power between the states and the federal government was done explicitly to protect the rights of the people.
And so when we go back to the 10th Amendment, which expresses the delegations of those powers to the Fed, you said that they are war, peace, and negotiation of foreign commerce. Outside of that, outside of them being an ambassador of those things, all the other powers, and make it very clear for us, are in the hands of the state that we live in.
Generally speaking, yes. If you think about it from a general perspective, it's a matter of internal power versus external power. The states did not need the federal government to tell them how to run their land, manage their resources, or create their laws. Our states existed, and I think we need to say this out loud sometimes. Our states existed for 13 years before the federal government existed that we know today.
Wow.
And so the reason that we created a federal government was so that the states could work together as a union, as one entity for their common defense, to promote general welfare in foreign exportation and treaties, and to preserve the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And so we understanding from the preamble to the Constitution, the whole purpose of the federal government is to be an ambassador on behalf of the state.
Now, there's a lot of time that's being spent on trying to provide health care from the government to the people that will be universal. The Democrats have done it. The Republicans are now bringing forth their model of it. Are either one of them the right thing as far as the constitutional? Is it a constitutional overreach to even for them to be going there, in your estimation?
Absolutely, and it's not even, again, it's not an opinion matter, because you have to look at the text of the Constitution. There is no delegation of authority to the federal government to be involved in health care. That is a power reserved to the states, and James Madison made that very clear in Federalist 45, that the powers concerning the lives, the liberties, the properties of the people, the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state are reserved to the state. The authority to legislate regarding the lives of the people, which would be health care, is something that is reserved to the state.
Wow.
And they did that on purpose, CL, because those who were designing our constitutional republic had just overthrown the most far-reaching government that you can have, a kingdom-style government. And they decided we don't want a kingdom here. See, we didn't just declare independence from Great Britain or George III. We declared independence from kings forever. And they established a government where the people had an opportunity to self-govern and not have government governing over them. And they knew with a central government, you had to make it limited because the tendency throughout history, proven, these are one of these self-evident truths, that throughout history, government always begins to consume more and more power.
Yeah.
And when that happens in a central government, you have a kingdom.
And that is exactly, folks, what America needs to hear at this point in time. Because,
May I mention?
please.
May I mention something really quick?
Mhm.
You know, here's the thing: for a state, you are either an independent sovereign state, or you are a colony of a kingdom. There is no in between.
Wow.
You are either a colony where you must seek permission and guidance from the federal government on how to manage your land, use your resources, make your laws, and govern over your people. Or you are a sovereign independent state where you dictate to the federal government their power, and they must abide by the agreement.
Wow. That is so strong, especially you folks down in Louisiana. You're fighting these various things that are politically correct. You folks in North Carolina certainly doing that, even in Florida, wherever you are. Chris Ann, I want you to say that again. I don't want people to miss it. They're either an independent sovereign state or they're part of a king. Say that again.
Your states are either independent sovereign governments or they are colonies in a federal kingdom.
Wow.
There is no middle ground.
Chris Ann Hall, stay with me. Folks, you stay with me. This is exactly why you need to get this woman, she can preach, I'm telling you, down to where you are. ChrisAnnHall.com. We'll be back with her in just a minute.
What will you do when you hold it?
You picture that yellow board, right? Look, Colton, there's still snow on the mountain. Colton, have you busted out your schoolwork and started? Okay. Well, let's put a time limit on looking outside. Daddy said time's up. Daddy gave you your answer. Daddy and I function as one entity. One voice.
Wherever you are in the continuous United States and even in Alaska or Hawaii, remember this: as a state, whatever state you're in, you are either an independent sovereign government or you are a part of a colony of a kingdom. And Chris Ann, you say it so well. I want you to, in case you missed it, I'm going to have her say it a third time. This time, I'm really going to write that down because that's good stuff right there. Chris Ann, say that again about who we are and what, if we're either one thing or another as a state. Tell us about that.
It's the manner in which we were created, CL. We were created to be independent sovereign governments. Utah is an independent sovereign government. Louisiana is an independent sovereign government. Florida, North Carolina, you are all independent sovereign governments. If you are not an independent sovereign government, you are a colony in a federal kingdom. There are no other options.
Wow.
And you know what's interesting, CL? Chief Justice Roberts of the Supreme Court of the United States, in his majority written opinion regarding the Affordable Care Act, said this very statement, and I'm quoting, "The states are separate and independent sovereign, and they have to act like it."
Wow. Wow, that is and folks, that means that the onus, the responsibility of that is on you, because you
Absolutely.
are the citizens of your state. And government, as we say all the time here on this show, begins at your kitchen table. And when you couple all of the things together that Chris Ann has been saying here today, it doesn't point to anybody other than you to decide what type of people we're going to be. And the founders, in their genius, the genius of the founders, they laid it out very plainly as far as the type of people, the unique kind of people that we were to be. Now, Chris Ann, when we look at the word that you used, and then I want to shift gears here in just a little bit to multiculturalism, but this is so interesting. You used a word called ambassador. The government was to be actually our appointed ambassador. Expound on that.
Well, the only reason we needed the federal government to begin with was to deal with external affairs, as James Madison said. We could manage our own internal affairs. We could manage our own internal prosperity and production, and even to a certain extent our own internal security. But when you think about it from a whole, communities always come together for certain benefits. And the benefit of the Union was so that all of the states could join together in a common defense, and they could also join together in an effort to promote the general welfare, which means to promote the entire Union's welfare as a whole. So the federal government's job is to be a single voice on behalf of the states in the matters of foreign affairs. So if you're going to have a treaty with France, you don't have to have 50 different treaties with 50 different currencies and 50 different terms. If you're going to go to war, you don't need 50 different declarations. Peace, you don't need 50 declarations. And to coordinate all of those things, you don't need 50 different things and 50 different ways. And so they created the federal government so that we could have a unified voice in those matters.
That is amazing. And folks, I am telling you that was the genius of the founding documents that were written by our founding fathers. And if we would adhere, and that's why we need the reason why we need constitutional judges who are originalists. And Chris Ann, tell us about that. I hope you have another couple of segments for me, because I want to get into the idea of what is meant by Justice Antonin Scalia and now Neil Gorsuch declaring themselves to be originalists as far as the Constitution is concerned. What is the opposition, or what is the opposite of being an originalist as far as the interpretation?
Well, the opposite of being an originalist is someone who believes that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. And in that, they mean that the Constitution can be amended based on popular opinion, social change, or those in power. But originalism, how the Constitution was written as a contract by those who wrote it, says we don't care what the mob says, we don't care what the powerful say, we will ensure that all are treated equally with dignity. We are not ruled by mob mentality, but by principles of liberty. You see, originalism is actually the shield against slavery, masters, and oppressors, because the basic underlying principle of the Constitution is liberty.
Yeah.
It's what's declared in the Declaration of Independence, recorded in the preamble of the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights was incorporated into the Constitution as a further declaration of the people's liberties.
And folks, that is the culture of America. When we talk about American culture, the culture of America is liberty. Go ahead, Chris Ann.
However, a living, breathing mechanism of interpretation for the Constitution creates an arbitrary government. It creates a government that is dependent upon current social trends and the will of the powerful. It's really, CL, it's just another name for a banana republic. Mm-hmm. And the living, breathing interpretation allows government to say that, well, there were no cell phones in 1789, so we have the right to arbitrarily control your communications, There were no internet in 1789, so we can define who is a journalist and what can be said. The living, breathing lie gives power to the oppressor through interpretation by the powerful, the majority, or the deceptive who distort history. So if the majority or the powerful decides that one group of people deserves less or more protection, less or more property, less or more liberty, then there is no recourse for the powerless or the minority.
And this is
You are a
exactly,
slave.
folks, listen to what she's saying. And you can see how the takeover, the government takeover, especially in areas like public housing, food stamps, they determine medicine, I mean, this healthcare thing, they are determining who gets what. They determine who. Listen, as long as you are in charge of keeping your brother, if you're, and that's been a very misinterpreted portion of scripture as far as what
Amen.
Cain said to Abel has been very, very misinterpreted. As long as you're in charge of keeping your brother, then you determine how long he's kept, what he's kept from, or what he's kept to, or if he's kept at all. You determine that. And so that is what we have given over to government. And that's what we actually have to watch out, even with Paul Ryan or this president. We have to watch out for them becoming the keepers of the people. We can give away that our liberty as far as that is concerned. Chris Ann, go ahead.
We have become pacified in prosperity, lazy in luxury, complacent and compliant in our comfort. We have become so comfortable, CL, that we have willfully and willingly traded our liberty for that prosperity and comfort. And in turn,
Hold that thought.
have-
Hold that thought. Hold that in turn right there. Hold that thought.
Okay.
I'm CL. I'm going to be back with Chris Ann Hall when I return. That's chrisannhall.com. I'll be right back.
Fired up. We become slaves. Healthcare, food. When you're your brother's keeper, then you determine. When you allow the government to be your brother's keeper, then you allow the government to determine what you can keep and how long you can keep it. And you are a slave in those Section 8 housing. I wonder how many people he reaches in that. In Louisiana, there. He probably has a pretty powerful voice.
Jay, that is a perfect song to play. Folks, I'm just back. I've been on the road for 7 days, and I got to tell you something. We did get a chance to talk to some mid-high level folks on the road, and I just left Washington, D.C. last night. I got to tell you something, folks. This is the time. These are the times. These are the times that try the souls of Americans. These are the times that will try the souls of Americans, the unrest and all of that that's going on in this country. And all what we're trying to do, of course, I want to thank all of you for making us so popular here in the Arklatex area, but we are gaining that same type of popularity in North Carolina. Denver, coming your way. We're coming your way. Phoenix, you're right there in the crosshairs. You're on the horizon. And I want to certainly bring people like Chris Ann, Alan West. Alan's a regular on the show to you all the time. And Alan and Chris Ann are really two of your favorites. I know because you tell me. And so I want to continue now with Chris Ann Hall. Chris Ann, you were laying it out as far as how we should approach big government and how we should keep them in check as far as the way they approach us. Go ahead, continue your thought.
You know, the greatest gift that the designers of our constitutional republic gave us, CL, was the opportunity to self-govern. And what our greatest condemnation on America today and Americans is our refusal to self-govern. And I think what has happened is that throughout history, the application of our Constitution and its relevance has become distorted through revision of history. And quite often you hear people argue that the Constitution can't be relevant because, after all, it prolonged or actually empowered slavery in America. And that is something that is simply not historically true.
Right.
You know, the Constitution was created to end slavery. It was the Constitution was created in such a way, the 3/5 clause and the end of the slave trade was created in such a way to diminish the power of slavery.
Right.
You know, they knew they couldn't plow new fields overnight, but they knew that the principles of liberty were sound, and that if they could create a fertile environment where liberty could flourish, then it would not be long before people demanded liberty for all.
Exactly
and the
right.
one part of history that we leave out of our books, CL, which is very, very disturbing to me, is that our states, when they were still colonies over here, were trying to end slavery. But because they were British colonies, the British government refused to allow them to end slavery. Virginia had actually gone through the step as a colony to outlaw slavery, but the British government threatened the colony of Virginia with military force and economic sanctions if they actually went through with the enforcement of the laws. So our independence from Great Britain was not just a liberty for elite slave owners. It was truly built on the Judeo-Christian principle that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And these principles of self-governance and liberty, CL, are still relevant and important today, but we have failed to teach them for so long. We now see the American people maddening on to their own destruction, creating their own terms of servitude and slavery just so they can get a few trinkets and some comfort.
Preach, woman, preach. I'll tell you what, just 76 years, folks, after the country ratified the Constitution, slavery was abolished. And folks, that is something that is also, as Chris Ann said, there are so many things that are left out of the teachings in our history, when American history is taught to our young people, that are very important to the peace of the country if, in fact, we understood the history of our nation and the incredible impact that the founding documents have and should have on our society. Chris Ann, with that, that's a good caveat, a good way to make a transition, because our nation, I see, is becoming, in so many ways, multicultural minded. And somehow progressives have gotten the people to believe that the word and perhaps the idea of multiculturalism is a good thing, and maybe on paper it is. Socialism's good on paper. It looks great on paper, but the practice of it. Tell us about the evils of the practice as far as multiculturalism is concerned.
Well, here's the thing, CL. It is the unity of liberty that brought America together to begin with. Thomas Paine wrote an essay called Common Sense. And in his essay of Common Sense, he describes that even in their day, they were, I don't know, as you would put it, multicultural. They were a melting pot. Mm-hmm. But it was because of their unity in liberty that they were able to come together and respect each other's right to liberty and join against tyranny. He said it is not in numbers that we gather our strength, but in unity. John Dickinson wrote the song, a pre-Revolutionary War song called the Liberty Song, that was published in Boston in 1768. And in this he wrote then join hand in hand, brave Americans all. By uniting we stand, by dividing we fall.
Awesome.
And,
Awesome.
And that is the clue right there. That is the linchpin to understanding why those in power want to keep us divided in our own little camps, our own little tribes, our own little divisions. Because it's, let me just unify this whole show today for you, CL. The power of controlling government rests in the hands of the people through the most powerful entity that was created, the state.
Wow.
And the only way the federal government can prevent the limitation of their desire for unlimited power is to keep the people divided in their own little interests, their own little communities, so they do not come together united in the unification of liberty for all. That the federal government.
Stay right there, folks. Chris Ann, I want you to come back with me for one more.
Yes, sir.
With Chris Ann Hall when I return. CL, Friday, the jeweled cities of the Architect, Shreveport and Bossier City, streaming nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America, our home, our homeland. On with me is one of our native daughters, Chris Ann Hall. She's on the road with her husband, JC, and they are, I'm sure, about doing the Lord's work. I have no question in my mind about that. Chris Ann, the last time I had you on, you said that multiculturalism really had nothing to do with race. Reiterate that, if you would.
It doesn't. It's about what we've been talking about. It's about keeping people divided. We are all Americans, and as Americans, red, yellow, black, or white, we are all Americans unified by the principle of all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And as Americans, we must understand that there is a strength in that particular unity. And when we look at each other and we see these visual differences, we create the mechanism of divide so that that can be used against us. Can I tell you a personal story to illustrate all of this?
Please do.
So my husband, his great-great-grandfather is a freed African slave from Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had no idea that this was his heritage, because if you look at my husband,
no, he doesn't look like he has any black in him whatsoever.
No. But you see, we had an opportunity to speak in Bakersfield, California, and my father-in-law said, "Hey, that's where our family hails from. Why don't you meet up with my cousins there, my father's family, and get together with them so they can get to know you?" And we're like, "Oh, that's great." And so we communicated via text, and we made up all these arrangements. And then when we showed up at their house, they opened the door, and we were like, "Wait a minute."
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Somebody forgot to tell us something. And so my husband calls my dad, and he calls his dad and says, "Dad,
Wrong address.
You forgot to tell me that your father was black." He said, "Oh, yeah, I did forget. But, we were living in California, and we were just all family. We didn't see each other as color.
Amazing. Amazing. And so that is truly the story of a melting pot. I have met so many people in this country, red, yellow, as we said, black or white, who have no clue what their heritage is. They don't know if they're
No.
Irish. They don't know if they're French. They have no clue. Or German. They have no clue what their heritage is. And the beauty of America, though, is that anyone can come here from whatever part of the world they happen to be from and become an American. That is the beauty of America. As long as we don't try and change the culture of liberty that our nation
Right.
and our nation alone gives. Chris Ann, you said something about multiculturalism being a mechanism, a tool for keeping people divided, and we certainly have seen that. And I want to thank you, as always, for sharing so openly and passionately your views on the Constitution and the Constitution itself, which, as you stated over and over, is not your opinion. It's what the Constitution says. And so I want to thank you for that. And I also want you to give to us again, one last time here. How do we get you, if a person wants to get you to where they are, how do they do that?
You can find me at chrisannehall.com, KRISANNEHALL.com. You can get the radio show, the television show, and all the articles. I do want to mention, CL, if people are interested in historical and constitutional truth about how the Constitution ended slavery, I actually have an article that they can see for free on my website, How the Constitution Ended Slavery. Once again, not my opinion, but shown through the words of the men who wrote the Constitution themselves, why they needed independence to end slavery, and how the Constitution itself was that mechanism.
How the Constitution Ended Slavery. Go to chrisannehall.com. Read it. I know I will be. God bless and God keep you and your spouse on the road there. I look forward, and your son. I'm sure your son is traveling with you too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He is with us right now. He is homeschooled, but he'll tell you he's not homeschooled. He's car schooled, airplane schooled, hotel schooled, sailboat schooled.
Bless his heart. And I know, Chris Ann, if I had any opinion of the type mother you are one of those old school mothers who don't take a lot of stuff. And so
Yeah, amen.
God bless and keep you and order your steps in his word. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, CL.
Thank you. I'm CL. That was Chris Ann Hall on with me there. And I tell you, folks, get her to come and speak to you. Hey, I'd be happy to come along with her. I'm doing everything I can with every other thing we're trying to juggle around here to hook up with her on the road so we can do sort of a road show here. Maybe we'd be out for a week or so. And I think I'd take Jane along with that. We make that a family outing of constitutionalists. I'm CL. We'll be right back. CL, the home stretch of the Friday show, the weekend show. And I am CL Bryant. I want to thank you so much for coming along with us on this great American journey that we have been on now as far as radio is concerned for 3 years. And I have been out doing this. I've been preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ for over 35 years. But this gospel of America incorporated with that gospel. I've been doing now for 8 years this year. And, well, actually 9, because I told everybody that George Bush, his last year in office, actually the last 2 years in office of George Bush, he lost his mind and actually set the table for what we're seeing now. However, it got much worse. It got much worse after he left, but he did set the table, and if you're honest, that will have to be what you have to conclude. Now, when we look at, I want to go back to, and Lord knows I will be using this in various facets on the road as I travel and as I speak to other radio audiences as we expand this radio program. There is something that you really do need to incorporate into your private lexicon as well, and it is these words when you're talking to people about the power of the Fed versus the power of the states. Chris Ann Hall said this, and it does come from James Madison, but she condensed it down into something we can just look at common sense. You in your state of North Carolina, you in your state of Florida, California, Louisiana, Utah, wherever you are, understand that a state is an independent, sovereign government. A state is an independent, sovereign government. And if it yields that independence, then it becomes a colony of a federal kingdom. And that is what the Revolutionary War was fought to abolish, is our colonial servitude to the kingdom of Great Britain. And then in these days and times, when we look at, what the big argument, pardon me, in the streets of America is right now, what the going argument, the argument of the day, and the flames that are being fanned by progressive liberalism with the words fascist, racist, homophobe, bigot. When those types of words are being fashioned in this nation today, when campuses are being burned because folks want to talk and express their opinion, their American opinion, whether it's liberal or conservative, but the conflict is over conservatism, then you have to understand that there is a certain bondage that we are being led back to. Can't you see it? Can't you see? There is a certain bondage that Americans literally are being led back to by the activities that are being launched against those who constitutionally have free speech. I have to go back to Ann Coulter. Go back to Ann. Ann has a right to speak when she's invited without threat of bodily harm. It bothers me, because I know Ann, it bothers me for any American, whoever you are, if you want to get up and say your piece, and you have thugs, hooligans, whatever you want to call them, anarchists, who will not let you speak. And if you do, they're going to harm you. Friends, that's not America. Now, somebody's going to say, well, didn't the Tea Party protest of Barack Obama? Yes, they did. Never, never, never was there one, because you know the news media would play that up like you cannot believe. Never was there one of us that was part of that grassroots movement you can never point to that said they were going to do any bodily harm to the President of the United States. And I explained it as well as I could possibly explain it to you on Wednesday, why that was never the case. Not from me or anyone. No one. And that is because we respect the office of the President of the United States. Not necessarily the policies that come from the office. And those things you have every right to contest. But the office of the President of the United States must be respected by the American citizen. That's a must. I'll be back.
Want some whiskey in your water, sugar in your tea? What's all this crazy question they're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't want to see. I'm not told and let's go.
Continuing on the home stretch of the C.L. Bryant Show here on the weekend, Friday show. Certainly want to thank all of you for coming along with us on this ride. Yes, I know there were people on the right, there were people who call themselves conservatives and yada, 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 who said, I got a text on that, who said, he's not my president, talking about Obama. There were people who said that, but I never said that. I never said that. There are people who, even right now, if you walk out on the streets of a lot of places, will say Trump's not my president. Never Trumpers. There were never Trumpers in the Republican Party. And you know what? When I look at this, the level of venom directed toward this president, very much unlike that was directed toward Barack Obama. You had just about every Democrat of every stripe on board with Obama, but not even Republicans had wanted to give this president a chance until, hey, the light came on that, yes, he was the president. He is the president. And whoever is elected to that office, you can say whatever you want. Now, if you go and denounce your American citizenship and go live in wherever, some other place other than the greatest nation on the face of the earth, which you'd be absolutely out of your mind to do. If you go and denounce your citizenship, then no, he's not your president any longer. But, hey, Barack Obama, and this is going to pain me to say it, but I'm going to have to say it. Barack Obama, but if I failed, if you failed, if we failed, and we just laid down, and Bernie Sanders, well, heck, I may denounce my citizenship if that happens. I get on the Whoopi Goldberg and Alec Baldwin train. I'm leaving. No, I'm not. I'm going to stay here to try and recover the republic. Maybe as an expatriate. I don't know. But if Bernie Sanders became president of the United States, duly elected president of the United States, pains me to say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. If Bernie Sanders became president of the United States, he would be my president with me considering leaving. So that would not be, because I got to tell you, if Bernie Sanders becomes president of the United States, or somebody like Bernie Sanders becomes president of the United States, it's over. I mean, the last person leaving America turned the light out. Last conservative leaving America turned the light out, because they will be in total darkness. But he would be the president. I would be headed for, I don't know where. I don't know where. Is there any place better than here? That should give you the zeal to save it. Because there is no place better than here. Heck, not even, I've eaten Big Macs in other countries. They're not Big Macs. No, the special sauce is different. Mayonnaise is even different in other places. There is no place better than here. So that should give you the zeal to save it. And folks, when we look at the truth of what is actually transpiring, I said this on the road these last 7 days, and I've said it to you on several occasions, but I want to reiterate, I want to re-up on it. There is a social engineering that truly is taking place that you cannot afford to ignore. We are being socially engineered. And you must become a part of the resistance. It's not hard. We've done it before. It's in our DNA as Americans to resist. Resist bending the knee to any king other than the King of Kings. We have let the delegates, the ambassadors that we have selected to represent us, have too large of a voice when representing us. It is time now to rein all of that back in. It is time to do that. And you, my friend, are being called upon right now to rein in those people who we have placed in office. And certainly, folks, it is time to rein in the idea that the Fed gives to the states their power. As Chris Ann had said, it's just the other way around. Or else we become colonies of a federal kingdom. I'm CL. I want to thank each and every one of you for having joined me today. We'll be back to wrap everything up here in just a few minutes. I want to thank each and every one of our sponsors for being there low these 3 years, and all of you who have made us so popular here in the Arklatex area. I am telling you that we're on our way to sail bigger, broader, wider horizons. I'll be back.
You had not have fallen, then I would not have found you. Angel flying too close
Let it play.
to the ground.
Let it play through there a little bit more, Jay. I love this song. You know I do.
And I patched up your broken way.
Folks, I want to say this.
And hung around a while.
There are a lot of people that come from broken places in this world. And many of them, they find their way to America. Song by Neil Diamond, they come into America. They risk life, they risk limb to come to America. There is something that I will share with you that I always share on the road with most every audience that I talk to, regardless if I've spoken to them before. I always remind them of this. It does not matter whether your ancestors came here on the Mayflower or if they came here in the hulls of slave ships like mine. In the DNA of every true American is a thirst for liberty and freedom. And that must not go away. If it does, as I said in the last block, then the last patriot leaving America, turn the light out. Because that light will certainly need turning out. And folks, I want to say this to you. I don't want you to misunderstand excuse me, what I'm saying here. I believe that we have great opportunity right in front of us. And I believe that we must take advantage of that great opportunity that is ours. That is ours. And I certainly hope that you understand that we have a DNA that has given to us the opportunity to take advantage of the great endowment, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All of that given to us by our Creator. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our minds. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.
To the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond